It's a particular pleasure, though, before I do that, to have been invited by Paula, Anita, Lucy, the team, to be part of your day today. Thank you for the invitation. The particular pleasure is that I live in a village called Bourton, which is near Swindon, which is just outside Swindon. So I too am enjoying the Sainsbury's roundabout mayhem, for those of you from my neck of the woods, and love the area. So it's a huge pleasure to be amongst locals and friends this afternoon. And the more we can do to set this area alight in terms of our positivity, our ability to engage, evolve and go, the better, as far as our community and our children are concerned. So wonderful to be here. I would like to take that theme of engage, evolve, go, because if we're going to do that, we will have to adapt. We can't wait to evolve. That's a very slow process. We're going to create our own evolution. We will have to go before we are ready to go, before we've got everything certain that it will work. We're living in a different age. We're moving at different speeds. I'm well aware that you know that already. So what I will go straight to is some new ideas on how we can do it. There's a phrase that an American client of mine, he runs Kellogg's, used, which is, we need to be going to where the puck will be. He likes ice hockey, not where the puck was. And I think as we engage, seek to evolve and to go, it is to that place that we need to be going. Where do we need to arrive at the end of 2021, mid 22? I don't think we can see far beyond that at present. So with that in mind, we're going to be leaving this famous comfort zone. And when we do that to adapt, our whole body lights up and says, retreat, retreat, retreat. And that's because we're human. So whenever we're looking to do things we've never done before, which means uncertainty, which means risk, our whole bodies light up. Our whole biochemistry takes over. Our neurotransmitters change. We physically alter when we move into even thinking about those areas. And so where I'd like to start today is with that idea that we need to understand, if we're going to adapt, to evolve, to engage, to go to where the puck will be, and to do that quickly in the world that we're currently inhabiting, we've got to acknowledge some of our human engineering, specifically and in summary, that we have got uniquely the ability to have purpose, to want to create, to collaborate, to build, to defer satisfaction in order to build something in the future that we'll benefit from later. And we've got this process, this biological response based on the most ancient parts of our brains, that when we try and do this with uncertainty, we'll say, run away. And so we've got this tension, and I'm going to call that the tiger, because it literally roars at us. Our bodies change, our stomach feels different, our heartbeat quickens, and the little voices of self-doubt start to speak to us. So in the short time I've got today, I'd like to introduce the tiger. Done. I'd now like to look at some ways of how we overcome that. And the first, for me, and the most critical, is our ownership and our accountability. We have to acknowledge that we hold the pen, that we have enormous agency, ability to act, to do things. And we have a lot of stories for all of us different groups at the moment as to why we can't, and how paths are blocked. So let us be circumspect, a little bit suspicious of those. I know there are some real things we need to deal with, but it will not help any group seize the pen and move forward if they're buying into a story that says, but I can't. Because on some level, we all can. And we write this story of our lives, through our decisions, actions, and our results. So if we're going to engage, evolve, and go, we need to decide, act, and then not in after the go, there'll be some form of result down the line. And of course, with the sum of all the decisions, actions, and results so far in our lives, we've built those up, and that's where we are today. And I know there are some terrible things that have come along to each and every one of us during that process. And there are some glorious things that came along during that process. So we didn't write it all, of course, but we decided how to respond to those things. And one day when I hope I'm 101, we're all 101 at the same time, in some hopefully nice place for 101-year-olds. And we're looking back on this amazing journey and this extraordinary planet. And despite various things that I would like to change, this pretty wonderful country. As we look back, the question will not be, did I have the opportunity to engage, to evolve, to go? The question will be, did I pick up my pen and write? Did I tame my tiger and write my story, heart and soul, that I could be proud of, where I did the things I needed to do and wanted to do? Or will I look back and have to acknowledge that the tiger wrote my story for me, that every time I thought of engaging and evolving and leaving the comfort zone, I pulled back? And I don't know how you're sitting there feeling today. I can't tolerate the idea that my last thoughts at 110 will be, I could have had an adventure there, but I held back. So I want to get involved. And if we're going to get involved, we're going to have to start before we're ready. And if we know how we're going to build the new thing, well, it's not very new, is it? It can't be. It must, by definition, if we know how to do it, have been done. So if we're going to build new, we've got this uncertainty. How do we start? When we were educated not to hand in our homework or our PowerPoint pack to the boss until we knew we were going to get full marks and be scored perfect. This is interesting. Now, I'm assuming most people have seen a film or a movie at some stage in their lives. Some of you have even got Netflix and all sorts. So movies, all kind of the same. We get introduced to a person in their ordinary environment. This is very important because we have to see what their world is. But then something will happen that means it all changes. And now they have to go on a journey. So we see who they are, then we see the challenge and how big a jump they have to make, and then they go off. A rom-com, boy meets girl. Boy is not adequate to date girl. This is the message we send in every rom-com. Men, you're not good enough. You shall have to improve yourselves in an hour and a half in order to be worthy of the attention of this person you have met. And off he goes on his journey to do that. We can go to an example of a teenage girl. She's in Kansas, and she doesn't like it. We know she doesn't like it because she sings us a song. She wants to go over the rainbow where her troubles will melt like lemon drops. What does she do about this? Hitchhike to New York? Get on a Greyhound bus to Chicago? No. She sings us a song. So then something happens to this teenage girl that forces her to move. She gets dropped through a tornado in the merry, merry land of Oz. And now she's got to make new friends, try things she's never done before, learn new skills, go to places where she doesn't know she can succeed. She's got to overcome obstacles, don't we all? But she's got a flying witch, a witch with flying monkeys, a green witch with flying monkeys that she's got to overcome. This is the story of change. This is the story of leaving the comfort zone. We see it in all the great movies that we've loved. This is the moment where Luke decides, having said, no, I don't think I will leave Tatooine. I'll stay on the farm. Don't ask me what they farm there. He finds the stormtroopers have killed his guardians. And this is the moment where John Williams' score changes and he embarks on the adventure that kicked off a phenomenon. In the movies, they get given the event that sparks change, because change always starts with an event. In our lives, we don't. So we either wait for that event to come along, or we create that event. And that takes some guts. And that, to me, is what's contained in the title today. And we can talk about it, we can say how fast change is, and we can get back home, turn on the TV and open a bottle of something or other, or we can engage, evolve and go. And that involves a physical reaction that we have to overcome. It involves making new friends, learning new skills and moving forward. In horse racing, it was very interesting. I took this challenge. It was from a client. I went home very excited. I thought, what a great challenge. I could have taken a hard challenge, run a marathon or something. No, I've got horse riding. How hard can horse riding be? Right? It's a sitting down sport, which shows you exactly how little I knew about horses. I went to a big comprehensive school in London, terrifying things at my school, some good things at my school, can't remember many, but I never found the stables at my school. I knew nothing. I went home, I got on Google. I learned that a jockey will usually start learning how to ride a horse somewhere between the ages of 3 months and 6 months, which is bad news because I'm 36. A jockey will start a race at between 7.5 and 9 stone. I didn't know what I weighed, so I got on the scales. I'm 12 stone. This means that 25% of me has got to find a new place to live. I thought, well, I'll check how safe it is. So I Googled jockey mortality rate just to be sure it was safe. And it wasn't safe. It was a bad Google. So I went to bed, I was pretty stressed. The reason I bring those facts in is not because you're likely to want to become horse jockeys or because I think it was clever that I did. It's to illustrate the fact that I really, in my heart, in my brain, believed I had no business showing up for this particular Engage, Evolve, Go chapter. And everybody I spoke to, except for one woman, and I'll talk about her now, told me the same. You have no business showing up to do this. And yet it was done using the framework that we'll whistle through this morning. My question to you to initiate our conversation, what is it you think you have no business showing up to do? And what outdated thinking are you going to have to get rid of to deal with that? And in addition, how can you possibly evolve when you've got no business showing up for the next chapter? We've got to resolve this or walk with enormous courage and collaboration through the emotional turmoil of that step. And we don't discuss this. We just say there's a mental health problem because we're all having to adapt so fast. This is a learned set of skills, and maybe one day we shall teach them in schools. But for now, we'll look at them in this presentation. First, we're going to have to act boldly to move forward. My bold actions, which I won't go into today, which were very uncomfortable for me, ringing up all sorts of senior people at an age when I was not comfortable or had no platform to do that, led me to meet this woman. Her name is G. Armitage. She lives in our area. She lives in Lambourne. She completely changed my life. The most successful female jumps jockey England has ever produced. At this stage, she's working as personal assistant to Sir A.P. McCoy, just plain old A.P. the champ back then. I'd never heard of either of them. I should have done my homework. And at the end of dinner, G said, okay, we start on Saturday, meet me here. We'll go to a yard. Tina and Graham Fletcher, also in the area, wonderful Olympic show jumpers. We'll put you on a horse, do an assessment, and in a year, whatever the situation, we will get you to the racetrack. Should we do it? She wasn't supposed to say that, if I'm honest. She was supposed to say, don't think so. What you should do is go home, drink a beer, and watch Game of Thrones. And I would have said, thank you. But she didn't. If I touch her hand, I'm in Oz. The event is created. It is not complex to create the event, but it is outside of our normal activities. It is an engagement. It is an evolution to create that event. My question, what are you waiting for to create the event, to lead you down the path of doing the thing that you thought you had no business showing up to do? And the answer is probably in the way you see the world. And the way I see the world, by the way, because I speak about this because I struggle with it, not because I'm great at it. So we all have a set of rules, an algorithm. It is an algorithm that says, oh, I can't speak to people like that. And as we go towards speaking to the person like that, the algorithm switches, you shouldn't be here, danger, uncertainty, physical change, we blush, we flush, we get tongue-tied. We all recognize this. It's just the algorithm switching, and you change from purpose to process. And unless we have the emotional skills to deal with that, we will either blame the other person, that's what we're doing, we're blaming the other person because they wouldn't let us speak to them, or we'll think people like me can't do that and we'll back away. We all have these rules, they're hugely important, and I want to give you two very, very swift tools for dealing with this situation, thinking with it differently. First is to ask you what you see here. It's a wonderful book I shall credit immediately, Lisa Feldman Barrett, How Emotions Are Made, all about this. algorithm. It was a bee, a lovely, beautiful honey bee. Now, here's my challenge of the day to you. Unsee that. Don't see a bee. You've now got a set of rules. Your algorithm knows when it sees this image, it uses the word bee mentally. You've set up some links. Our brain is a linking network, and we have had a lot of links set up before we came to today. If we're going to evolve, we must dismantle some of those links. So now we see the bee. It's hard to unsee the bee, isn't it? Really hard. Jeff Bezos is so obsessed with this in building Amazon, he called his HQ Day One Tower. The day one being the way we look at the world, fresh. In Zen Buddhism, they would talk about having a beginner mind, the enlightened master or mistress being the one who can walk into a room with no assumptions based on yesterday and meet it as it truly is, not how they saw it yesterday. Day one thinking. What rules about yourself and the world do you have to unlearn fast in order to evolve? And secondly, and to bring this little part about the rule book to a close, if we look at these combustion engine cars, these manufacturers, forgive me, having Audi, I don't mean to single Audi out, wonderful brand, but all these manufacturers, BMW, they're also Mercedes, just in case you can't see, I'm not singling Audi, they all had maybe 3 decades of notice to deal with the combustion engine problems of emissions, and they all chose to really, if you'll forgive me, if you're in the industry, move at a glacial speed. I think they had a story, a narrative, factories, an investment, sunk costs, and they were kind of putting their things in. There was no engage, evolve, or go about how they tackle this problem. It took a fintech billionaire or millionaire at the time from California to engage, evolve, go, to work from first principles, not from narrative. When G. Armitage worked with me to help me adapt myself, my fitness, my career to become a televised jockey in 12 months, she worked from first principles. What is the to-do list for a 36-year-old overweight consultant to be on the racetrack in 12 months? Everybody else did the human thing and told me what they'd seen, the story, how it works around here. That was a no-no. So what are the first principles you would have to work from to move forward? I'm tight against time. I'd like to bring in 2 more ideas before we close. We've got a 30-minute slot today. I'm going to take you for a whistle-stop tour. Rule 3 is about acknowledging we're going to have to change what's in our schedule. Change happens in the schedule if we're going to make a new thing happen. Rule 4 is about recognizing that when we get to this edge of this comfort zone, the voices in our heads will begin to... Do you hear voices in your head? I hear voices in my head. I can't see you in this platform. I'm guessing you're all going, no, I'm fine. You've got an issue. I'm okay. That voice that you're speaking with now, that's the voice. And this, when I was in the changing room, the jockey's changing room, about to go out for my first race, this voice is telling me loud and clear, you have no business walking out of that door out onto the racetrack. I'm sitting in the jockey's changing room. Never been there before. I'm wearing head-to-toe silk, but it gets worse. Not only am I wearing head-to-toe silk in the Midlands in wintertime, 22nd, I think, of November, but also I've got no underwear on. Jockeys don't wear pants. The reason jockeys don't wear pants is that they weigh too much. It's not a me thing, it's an every jockey thing. And if you've got a choice between the jockey's diet and a pair of Marks and Spencer's finest, I promise you, if you're on that, you've got if you're on the diet and you've got a choice between M&S's finest or some sweeties, you're going to take the candy. Obviously, we have to wear something if we're going to be out in public on the television doing this in silk trousers. So all jockeys, not just me, wear ladies' hosiery. They're wearing tights under their breeches. They're quite thermal efficient as well, aren't they? I don't know if any of the women or the men wear them underneath their jeans or on a cold day, but they're very efficient. So it's makes this the most bizarre visual experience of your entire life. You're in a room full of superstar jockeys, all very skinny, all very short, all wearing ladies' hosiery and nothing else, reading the racing post. Right? It's odd in there. And then the noise comes from a guy who's walked into the room and says, jockeys for the next race, you've got to go. I don't want to go. The voice in my head says, I have no right to take this step in my evolution. It's like an exam that I just haven't had enough time to prepare for. It feels like to me. But that's the pace we move at now. That's normal now. Whether I have the right to walk out of the door, if we're looking at adaptation and change and managing anxiety during uncertainty and the pressures we're under now, whether I have that right is not dictated to me by voices in my head. If I think it is, I need help. It's not dictated to me by how I feel. We talk a lot about our emotions, which is a beautiful, wonderful, genuinely important thing now. But courage is literally overriding how we feel to do the right thing in a certain situation. Discipline, literally overriding the desire to stay in bed to get out and go for a run at 6 o'clock in the morning for a longer term aim. Whether I have the right to walk out of the door is a position on a flowchart, and I have ticked every box on that flowchart. That does not give me certainty. I'm about to move to the next level and face a risk, just like my little 7-year-old has just moved to the next level and gone into scary year 3. We have to evolve by moving to that next level. We won't feel ready, but have we ticked all the boxes? Have we adequately completed year 2 or done all the things necessary to qualify for a jockey's license, which I've got in my kit bag? Yes. I've earned the right to walk out of the door, to engage, to evolve, to go. What have you, sitting here today, earned the right to go do next, to engage, to evolve, to go? And whose permission, ladies and gentlemen, can you possibly be waiting for before creating, rather than waiting, the action to go make that thing happen? And when we do, we will go into turmoil. We'll think we're not ready. We'll think we're not worthy. We'll have imposter syndrome. We'll have all of these things. And there are others around we can discuss that with and take coaching from when it comes to us. I must move to my last point today to bring us in neatly on time. I'll take you through the other rules. You'll find them online also. Rule 5 is collaboration, and recognizing that people who we didn't think would talk to us will often engage with us and help us evolve. G. Armitage being the most extraordinary, she's G. Bradburn now, she got married, the most extraordinary example for that in my life and changed my life. Lots of people object to this, say, oh, they wouldn't help me, you don't understand. I challenge you to go try it. Won't be the first person you called, might be the 10th, but it'll be the best one. And G was the best one. Why? Because she'd been down this path of doing the impossible, because as a female wanting to ride professionally in the 80s, well, that wasn't an option. So she made it an option, working from first principles, and built the foundations for the women riding today, G and 2 other women in that era. Rule 6, recognizing we're going to have to go out in front of others naked and exposed. And they'll be in the bar with all their clothes on having a drink, and they will judge us. So that vulnerability and that willingness to be judged, some of you don't like me, and I promise you I'm totally relaxed about that. Fair enough to you. Of course, if I'm going to stand for something, some of you will take a different view. And this is okay. So we have to accept this comes with evolving, moving ahead of the pack. If we're going to where it's safe, well, they're already there. We're late to the party, and that's not why we're here today. Rule 7, we can practice this as a learnable skill. See if you can make the person who sells you fuel, if you can get any. See if you can make them laugh in the queue. And you'll go through all of this. I'm not funny. They won't like me. What if they hear me? I'll be judged. Voices in your head. The whole thing. The emotional change just by trying to crack a joke in the petrol station. Go to one far away. Well, you have to go to one far away. So go to one far away so they don't know you. You're not a regular. Rule 8, looking at this beautiful time we have on the planet. And it's running out for all of us. Let's hope we're only, in my case, halfway. I'm 50 now, so let's hope it's only halfway there. But it's not, all of us on a diminishing amount of paper to write our story upon. Let's make sure we're really enjoying using the best, making the best use for ourselves and others of that paper. We'll have to introduce new disciplines and basics to do wonderful things. And we have to commit to crossing the comfort zone. And I would like to end there by inviting you to come free diving with me. By the way, I was bipolar elevated. I'm not the first person to 100. That was Jacques Mayol. You may have seen him being portrayed in The Big Blue in the 80s. I'm the first British person to go past 100. This is the record dive. It's in real time. And if you want to take a big, deep breath, big pranayama, ugly belly yoga breath, not a chesty breath, a ugly breath, then you can come with me on the dive. If you start feeling weird at any stage, I would ask that you breathe, especially if you're home alone. I'm sure you're competitive. I have to take a decision at the beginning of this dive, and that decision is I'm now going to 101 meters. This dive is not a macho affair. It's a meditation. It's a point of yoga, of union with the planet. At 100 meters, the planet is literally giving me a hug, squeezing me. It's an extraordinary exercise in mindfulness and meditation. A beautiful thing to do. So this isn't macho, but that beautiful thing is taking place in an extraordinarily hostile environment. Beautiful, but hostile at the top of a mountain. So I have to take a decision. That decision is I'm now going to 101 meters. If there's an emergency, I will come home. I love my life and my children. But if there is not an emergency, I have to continue. I have to do 101 meters. Why is this important? Because if I leave the comfort zone thinking, you know what, I'll go to 80% of the journey, and when I'm there, I'll stop and see if I like it. You won't like it. 80% outside the comfort zone, when you stop and have a little think about it, is a place of some turmoil. Not on a dive, particularly turmoil, but for us, when we evolve, it's a place of turmoil, as we know, because we've all been there over the last 18 months. At 80% of this journey, my lungs will be compressed down to the size of my clenched fist. Currently, like yours, they occupy my rib cage. My diaphragm will be sucked up into my chest cavity, like the dome of St. Paul's. My stomach will be sucked in by the vacuum, which means that at 80 meters under the ocean, you look spectacular. If only you could stay like this, but you can't. I have to know I'm going through that. And ladies and gentlemen, I think that's the same for you all and for us all. I cannot possibly take the British freedive record from the world governing body here, AIDA, waving their little white cards at me, unless I know that I'm completing this journey into a hostile, difficult, uncertain environment. I've trained for, but it's still a new place. And I think it's the same for us all. As we move into this era of adaptability, of change, we have to know that we've committed to going. We're going to engage, evolve, and go. That's a big statement. It's not engage, evolve, and have a little bash and see how we feel about it. Once we've decided where we're going, of course, we might change path. We need to know that we're going to go there. We are completing this evolution because it will demand of us. And we need our friends around us before we embark upon it. My friends were there, believe me, with both in spirit, but also in the water with me, ready to support me if anything went wrong. You hold the pen. You are writing the story of your one unique life on this planet. So what is the chapter that you want to pick up your pen and write next in your story of engaging, evolving, and going in the opportunity that we have before us now? Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your day. I'll hand back to Paula and the team. Goodbye.